soft stuff. But it's really, really important. I mean, I can tell you one of the areas I really specialize in is, the big buzzwords today, diversity and inclusion. And you can look at that from a perspective of diversity. Great. It's a strategic initiative. Let's tick the box. Let's get more women on our boards. Let's get more, sort of multicultural ethnic profiles in on our team. Let's show that we are diverse. But the inclusion piece of that is not a checkbox, because inclusion is about how people are feeling. Now, when we start getting into emotions, you only know if you're included if you do that check, right? So you've got to have some really heart-centered, open and honest conversations with people. And that's the stuff that people don't want to talk about because it's just not easy. I can't tick it off and say I've done it. It's too hard.
Yeah.
And so that's where the idea of systems and culture and people comes together. I think that diversity and inclusion piece is a really good example of that.
Yeah, and it's interesting, we've certainly experienced organizations that have very much almost a compliance mentality towards diversity, where they're going for a number almost, rather than the cultural shift that it actually brings, or the depth of decision making that it brings by having people from different backgrounds and a balance of male and female thinking and all the benefits that brings. It's interesting. We don't specialize in that space at all, but we definitely see the differences in behaviors towards that, and also the rewards that it brings if the culture is right. Interesting. So tell me maybe a little bit about, this is a very specialized topic and way outside my skill set, but maybe tell us a little bit about the challenges in your industry generally with, you're coming from a point of being a real specialist in an area that's possibly not well understood by the very people that you're trying to give the service to. So maybe tell us a little bit about that.
That's very, very true. I mean, and also not every organization is large enough to have a people and culture specialist. So we've still got very traditional business models with old style management that focus very much on HR being sort of payroll, and so I think it's a very misunderstood area, which I'm very fortunate to work in, because then I can share that experience and expertise. I think challenges in the industry, wow, many. I think 2020 has challenged all of us.
Sure.
It certainly took away all those opportunities for face-to-face engagement. And as you know, a lot of what I do is in that space of soft skills. So, you've got to be tremendously, have tremendously high emotional intelligence to connect with people via these, I still think, very sort of one-dimensional channels that we have today of video conferencing. And I mean, thank goodness for Zoom, but still, emotional intelligence is culture bound. So you and I being of British origin, there are things that we will understand and we will recognize because perhaps we share a similar communication style or similar values. But if we are not from the same culture, then my high emotional intelligence may not apply across different cultures. So this is where I think a lot of that, those nuances have been taken away from us by not being able to engage with people face to face. That said, it's made us a lot smarter at virtual delivery. And we've all had to learn. I think it's been a steep learning curve for many of us, but certainly for those of us who are facilitators and are having to impart knowledge and training to large groups via video conferencing. So that's been a really big challenge in 2020. I think the other big challenge here is something we did touch upon, but it's, learning and development, again, is misunderstood. Like I said, people will call me in and say, we want to do a training program. And then they think the training program is going to solve a problem, but it never does. It never, ever does, especially not when you start with a team at the front end. It's got to start at the top. You've got to lead by example. And I always encourage any program, even if it's customer service, put your leadership team through it, because if they don't have a customer mindset, don't expect your your front-facing teams to embrace that. So it's about understanding that these learning and development programs need to be, they require more investment of time. It's a longer journey, and it needs to be more personalized, because you've got to remember, and I come back to culture when I speak about this, we all learn differently. I live with someone, my partner, he can sit in front of his computer screen all day reading and he can learn. I can't. I'm a practical learner, so I need practical engagement. I'm a doer. I learn very differently. So when you put all your people through the same training program, it doesn't always have the same impact. And you need to support your people through more personalized coaching, live coaching on the ground, getting involved with people to allow them the opportunity to learn how are they going to put what they have just learned into practice in specific to their circumstances or specific to their situation, or maybe the teams they manage, or whatever their responsibilities or remit is. And making it practically applicable is something that I think people don't fully understand even today. They just think, we'll hold a training program and then we're going to hold people accountable to put those learnings into action. It doesn't work that way.
That's a very interesting point. As you know, I do personal business coaching, and it's kind of a thing I do on the side from the business because I really enjoy it, and it's very personal, and it takes me to customers all over the world and businesses of all shapes and sizes. And I have quite a prescribed process that I take people through, but I don't think I've ever had one customer go through that the same way, because people view life differently, they view decisions differently, they learn differently, different things make sense to different people, even though it's the same process. So I totally get it. It's amazing. And it from years of working in corporates, it's probably totally misunderstood that you can't have one size fits all. This and if you have a training course and some people do very well and some don't, people are judged by that, rather than no one makes allowance for the fact that people have seen different things in that course. So it's strange. It's a very difficult topic.
Yeah, and if I can just add to that, Peter, I'm certified to work with a couple of organizations using their frameworks in training programs. So one is, I think you're familiar with whole brain thinking, HBDI, and also the cultural values framework. Now, these are frameworks that are neuroscience based, they're academically validated, and these they both have psychometric characteristics. And what I love about both of these tools is that they really demonstrate diversity. So they show how you and I maybe think differently. And that's okay, because for you to be successful in what you do, you need to think that way. And for me to be successful in what I do, I need to have other thinking intelligent, be it more emotive or creative expression versus perhaps procedural and processes, right? So we all think differently. And it's about understanding that it's okay to be me, but it's also okay for me to then flex that muscle, which is my brain, and push myself to think a little bit differently. So put a bit of energy in there, put a bit of focus to be able to push myself out of my comfort zone. And I think some of these tools really help people understand where they're at and where they need to be, and help them on that development program, and help people understand that we are all built differently. We do have different cultural values, and it's neither right nor wrong. It's just as it is. But what are we going to do to be more personally effective and more powerful in our respective roles?
So I guess as a high performing team, especially in a corporate environment where there's lots of pressures, that team having an understanding of the individuals in that team and the way they think must be quite important. Absolutely,
because it all has a place, right? So if you have a typical senior leadership team, for example, of diverse cultural backgrounds, you've got a lot of things in the mix here, right? But, for a merchandise team to be effective in what they do, you want them to be planned and organized and systematic. For a marketing team to be effective in what they do, you want them to be creative and think big picture. you need these different styles of thinking. You need different cultural influences to really position yourself effectively, because we're all dealing with multicultural customer base. We're dealing with multicultural teams. A lot of us are looking to expand across geographical boundaries. And a lot of us deal with customers and clients who think differently to the way that we do. So the more awareness you can bring around these differences, the better you can harness that diversity and use it to your advantage. It just makes people much more self-aware and personally effective.
Amazing stuff. And, you know, you are clearly bringing a much needed service to complex situations in organizations. And you've got a company here with a very deep capability, which is fantastic. And, you know, you've told us in this story, you've left the UK, you've gone to the Middle East, you came to Australia, you went dancing in South America, you've come back to Australia and taken the ultimate step of bravery and started your own business. And of course, recently you've taken another brave step and written a book. And I saw announced that you have a book coming to market. So tell us a bit about that. I mean, that's another stage in your life, isn't it, of being an author?
Yes, and a very unexpected one again, so very unplanned. I sometimes laugh when I think about it. But you know what? 2020 cleared up a lot of space, and being action-oriented, I needed to do something with that space. So I'm really fortunate that I could find time to, I guess, to find my voice as an author and to do something that allowed me some creative expression. It also helped me reflect on my journey, which I'm talking to you about today, and sort of be more honest and open about that story. There's been some really hard points in that journey, but there's been some challenges and obstacles along the way that have taught me many valuable lessons. So I wanted to honor that and bring that into my story as a business owner as well. So my book is called Curious About Culture. And it basically helps people understand and refocus their own lens on culture. And interestingly, I've used, and I may have shared the cover with you, Peter, as well, but I've used some glasses, like a kaleidoscope glasses, on the cover of the book to sort of highlight how we all view the world differently. So you pick up these glasses and what you see is very different to what I see. And that's based on our personal culture. So I wrote this book partly because I had time, but partly because when I went to the States to certify with the Cultural Intelligence Center, I walked away with a tremendous amount of knowledge and understanding and appreciation for cross-cultural engagement and cross-cultural sensitivity perhaps, but also how to cultivate that understanding across cultures. But there were a few questions that were unanswered for me, because when we talk about culture, people tend to think about, you know, where you're born, where you live, who you were born to. We tend to take it back to ethnicity and national culture and how we do things in Australia versus how we do things in Dubai versus how we do things in the UK. And I feel that culture is so much more than that. So I started to dig a bit deeper and talk a little bit about how filters such as generation and gender and faith and education and language also shape our personal culture and therefore also shape how we view other people. And it's been a big journey. It's been quite a deep journey of exploration, but I'm really thrilled with some of the stories that I've been able to present through that book. It is very thought-provoking. It's very introspective. It also offers a lot of practical tips. So it's kind of, you can treat it as a workbook. I've got some, because it's called Curious About Culture, each chapter ends with a little be curious set of questions to make you really think. And I also offer some exclusive resources like worksheets and, you know, sort of a toolkit that people can take away and work with. So I'm really proud that I've been able to pull this together, and very, very proud that I got a tremendous endorsement from the president of the Cultural Intelligence Center in the States just last week, that will feature very prominently on my book. He was very generous in his